Hi everybody, welcome to the dungeon. My name is Robin, and today is Lampworking 101.58. Today's demonstration is a little lengthy. Let's just jump right into it. It's the Spiral Murinni, and this came from the last Murinni that I made with you guys, the Starburst Murinni. I hope you're all doing safe and well, and we'll see you next time in the dungeon. All right, let's go ahead and start this Murinni off by making the stringer that we're going to use. These will be the spiral arms. You can use whatever colors you like. You can use more than one color. I just want to make sure that when I pull this out, it's nice and even. Even if you let it go like I did, grab it real quick, pull it, you'll be fine if you do that fast enough. So anyway, when you're done with getting a stringer, you're going to set that aside and begin the base color. And I have a 10mm rod here, which is really helpful to get a lot of glass on. And I do use this pretty much this whole rod for this Murinni. But your package here doesn't have to be as big as what I'm working on. You just want to make it big enough to, to make some stuff out of. So either way, you want to make sure that everything, no matter how big or small you're making this, it's all evenly put together with the stripes on the end. And here I'm just doing my best to get as much of that black glass on the rod as possible. And I'm just going to take the end off, that cut end off. I don't want that part of what I'm doing here. It can get a little dirty there. So at this point, you have all your glass. Go ahead and start heating it up and then shaping it into a round. And once you have this nice shape here, you are going to want to start to apply the stringer. And I'm just going to start at the very, very end. Stick your stringer where you need to. And what I do in order to make a nice straight line is to follow the line of the mandrel or the puntee that it's on. At least that's how that's the best. And my lines are not perfectly even, but try to make them as even as possible here. The more even they are, the more even your spiral will end up being. Okay, at this point, I just want to make sure that the ends of the stringer are nice and seated to the black glass. I don't want to really flatten down too much more with the Marver paddle there. I just want to let everything else kind of melt in nice and round and evenly. And I'm going to stick my puntee right in the other side and then very gently start to heat everything up. Make sure everything is as hot as you can get it, nice and even. I start to just heat pretty much back and forth on the sides here. And at this point, you're going to start making your twist, which is usually not how I do this, but I did notice that if you have this right here, this is like the key. This heavy twist in the flame is what gave me the really it just gave me the most amount of lines possible. It's the tightest spiral I could get. And you may have to make a couple of these. I had to make a couple of them myself, and you'll see the one that I made right before this one. And it is quite a bit different. The spiral is not as tight. And I do find that the tighter the spiral, the more delicate your that spiral twist is going to be. All right. Now look at these two. The one on the bottom is the one I made before, and it really has heavy white stripes. It worked, but not as nice as this one. This is the one I'm going to use. This really tight. I can barely even see the white lines. I was really skeptical that it was even going to work, and it worked out so well. So it may take you a couple times to get there, but I know you can do it. All right, moving on, let's start the bead. I thought I'd work with a color that I rarely work with for a base. It is really beautiful bright yellow. And I'm going to make a nice round bead here. I'm going to start it a little different though. I kind of want to play around with the base pattern that's going to be underneath everything. I could have made the whole thing just yellow, but I wanted the surface of this to be a little bit more interesting, even though the focal point is going to be these Murinnis. So once you have your glass on your mandrel, go ahead and roll it out just a little bit into a barrel-shaped bead. And on this one, I'm just going to give it some nice, interesting dot patterns. I'm using another yellow. I'm using a transparent yellow on top of this yellow. I just thought it would make it a little bit more richer and give it more depth with this technique. All right, once we put all those dots on, it's just a matter of heating everything up. And I just let everything heat up nice and evenly and smooth. And then at this point, we're going to add our clear. A lot of times I like to swipe it on from the top to the bottom, but this time I thought I would go ahead and do like a vertebrae stripe pattern. And I knew that you were barely going to see this pattern, but I really find that the way it looks underneath, you know, in the depth of this bead, it looks great. Really beautiful, and it doesn't take away from what's going on the surface. So I'm going to go ahead and add all of these wraps. I triple up on the wraps here, so I do four lines of 3 wraps, and then it's just melting everything down nice and evenly. I'm not too concerned here if things kind of stick and melt together, you know, before I want them to. Like I said, it's just the background pattern. All right, so we're going to just round it out, and now we're ready to put the Murinnis on. These Murinnis look so cool, and the best part about it is that I was a little, you know, I wasn't really sure about the pattern until later on in this piece because it just looks so dark. But what I'm doing here is I'm just grabbing each Murinni with my tweezers, and as I'm heating up the one spot where I want to place the Murinni, I'm also heating, I'm hovering the Murinni in my tweezers just above the flame, just to get a little tiny, just enough warm so it sticks to the glass. If it breaks, just pick up another one and keep going. Now once we have the first Murinnis on there, and yes, you could do this one at a time. I needed to go a little quicker for this demonstration, so I put a couple on at once. First thing I want to do is just heat the very surface of it and just gently flatten it down, just a little bit. Once those are all pressed down on the top, I'm going to heat each one up individually and do my best. This is like the best one I think I did, is the first one, to press a nice indentation into the very center of the Murinni. Easier said than done. I don't think I think that first plunge was the only one that I actually got in the center. But that's okay because it still looks cool. It almost looks a little bit more interesting having them a little onto the side. Okay, so once you have everything ready, you're going to go ahead and heat and gently flatten, heat and gently flatten. You may have to do this like 10, 11 times. It just depends on how big your flame is, how much you're heating it up. I like to go a little at a time, a little at a time, so my Murinni gets wider and wider. I can get it as wide as I can go if I take my time heating it up. All right, we're going to go through that same thing, just flattening down the tips. Pressing in with my tungsten pick. And then do the whole flatten down again. The sequence of adding Murinnis this way is probably the easiest way that I know how to lay them down. It's not the only way. There's quite a few different ways to do this, and hopefully I will experiment a little bit more and share that with you guys later on. But for now, just get everything nice and warm. Slowly start to press down, press down, press down until it's as flat as you can get it on the surface of the bead. And then you can go ahead and add your big clear dots here at the ends. And I'm using a thicker clear rod. I like to use the 10mm rod for this kind of treatment because when I heat it up, the amount of glass I'm getting on the end just perfectly encompasses the whole Murinni, and that's really important that you do that. You want to make sure that you coat the whole Murinni in clear. One nice big dot, and push it all the way down like you mean it. Or it's not going to press all the way over the Murinni. So make sure that you're pressing it down as much as you can here. All right, it's just a little bit of heating and rounding out on that surface, and we're just about done. All I want to do here is add a couple of dots just for fun, and that's it. This is one of the coolest Murinnis I've made yet, and which isn't many, but I think it's awesome. I hope you do too, and thank you so much for joining me. We'll see you next time in the dungeon.